Alright, you should be able to hear me now. I just realized that my mic was muted that whole time. It's a good thing I was just talking to myself. Alright. So we're gonna go ahead and open up. I don't really have any stories pulled up right now, but I was told to check out the subreddit Let's Not Meet. Alright. Celebrate our having a spooky Halloween. I'm pretty committed to trying to release some of the creepiest and most disturbing stories on this sub every year. Perfect for binge reading late at night. Nice. This should help. Alright. So let's wait for some people to start watching the stream before we actually start reading. But until then, we can just kind of hang out. Some spooky hip-hop beats. Well, my thing might not be loading properly, but it doesn't look like anyone wanted to show up to the stream. Alright, well, I'm gonna go ahead and start reading a spooky story anyway, but if no one wants to listen, then I'm gonna not waste my time. Let's see, let's go through. This one sounds good. Okay. Let's read this one. Alright. It's titled, "It Should Have Been a Beautiful Drive, but It Was a Trap. The story is why I always tell someone where I'm going and how I'm getting there." It was posted 7 years ago. It's it's tagged long. Oh, it's not super long. Okay. So, let's get the mic nice and close. Let's see. I lived in New Mexico for several years before moving to the Midwest. My friend Amy and I, both females, would spend many days exploring the remote corners of New Mexico, discovering abandoned ghost towns and enjoying the quiet, desolate beauty of the desert. One afternoon, March 2010, we were traveling from Rudiso to Albuquerque, always up for exploring. We took a back road rather than traveling up the more direct highway. One leg of our journey has us on NM55. It's a remote, teeny tiny 2-lane highway. We love those types of roads up until that day. This part of New Mexico is flat and desolate desert. You can see for miles, and there is virtually nothing except dirt and rock between the towns. And towns can be miles apart. So we were on NM55 going north. After a few minutes, we saw a white pickup truck up ahead of us, going the same direction. Suddenly he stopped, his truck sideways in the middle of the highway, blocking both lanes. We were about a mile away from him, and as we got closer, we began to get uneasy. We could see no reason for him to do this. We were the only other vehicle out there, and we began wondering if we should turn around rather than come up to him and have to stop. We were about half a mile away from him when he pulled over to the opposite side of the highway, but his truck was still pointed the direction we were going. We tried to relax a little. Surely this guy was a ranger or something. Maybe he was checking something on his land. As we passed him, we noticed a few things. One, there was only one person in the truck, a middle-aged guy who never took his eyes off us. And two, he was talking into a walkie-talkie. A few seconds after we passed him, he pulled back onto the highway and started following us, but never got too close. He would get to within a few cars' lengths within, and then drop back a little, and then speed up again to a few car lengths. I'm just reading this how this is written, by the way. We were getting nervous. We realized how alone we really were. We had seen no other traffic on that road, and we hadn't told anybody about our great idea to take this detour. We checked our cell phones, and neither one had signal, typical for remote New Mexico, but scary given our present situation. Amy was driving and speeding up, while I frantically checked the map, hoping to find a road that would have more traffic. There was no other road. We had to travel this one to get to the next town. Mountain Tournaire. Okay. The name of the town is very strange. Turning around to go back the other way, it didn't seem like a good option. After a few minutes, we saw another pickup truck coming towards us. He was going very, very slowly, maybe 20 miles an hour, if that. This pickup was old and beat up, whereas the one behind us was newer. Amy had us up to 75 miles, which was typical for us on these 55-mile highways, and we blew by the old pickup. As we passed it, we saw that it was another middle-aged guy, and he was talking into a walkie-talkie. After the white pickup passed him, he pulled a U-turn and pulled in behind it. As we watched all this, we could see the white pickup guy talk into his walkie-talkie. No doubt these two knew each other. We were being deliberately followed. And as for the first and only time in my life, I felt haunted. They stayed right behind us. Sorry, I'm tired. We watched for obstacles in the road. We truly thought old beat up pickup guy had set up a trap in the road and our vehicles would be disabled somehow. We talked about driving into the fields. We were in an SUV, but this was obviously their territory, and we were afraid if that would happen, or we were afraid of what would happen if we went off-road and got cornered. So we stayed on the highway. By now, the white pickup guy was right on top of us, and we could see him talking into the walkie-talkie, and he stayed right on our bumper. And and the old beat-up truck guy was right on top of him. The three of us sped down the highway. The white pickup inched closer. His maneuvering and edging closer made it apparent that he was trying to bump us. I watched helplessly as he got within inches of our back bumper. Amy floored it. We were passing 80 miles and edging up to 90. The road was flat and deserted, but any little thing going wrong would have been catastrophic. We absolutely were not going to slow down or stop if we could help it. The white pickup pulled into the opposite lane and started to gain speed. The only thing we could think of was that he wanted to pass us and get in front of us. If he had got in front of us, and his buddy was behind us, then we'd be boxed in and trapped. We looked frantically at the rocky desert on both sides of us. Our only option was to off-road it. Should we risk it? Could we speed through the desert and make it safely in one piece? As we topped a small incline and saw a sign that says Salinas Pueblo Missions National Monument, and it pointed towards the road pointed towards a road on the left, and right at that moment a blue pickup truck pulled out of that road onto the highway in front of us. As we came up on the blue pickup, we saw the plate said U.S. Park Services. We looked at each other and then looked behind us. Both pickup trucks did U-turns and went the other way. We followed the blue pickup to Montouanaire and then made our way to Albuquerque. I don't know exactly what those guys' intentions were, but they weren't good. There is something seriously wrong out there. I notified state police and they said they would keep an eye on things. This area is very near Belen, NM, which is where Tara Calico was abducted. It's also 100 miles from Elephant Butte. I don't know what Elephant Butte is. NM. Which is where David Parker Ray and his little secret torture laboratory. We didn't put all that together until later. Even though David Parker Ray had died by the time this happened to us, we do believe that there are others out there like him. And whoever abducted Tara has never been caught. Or maybe we came into meth lab territory, but since this happened on an actual highway rather than a back country road, I tend to discount the meth lab theory. Whatever is going on out there, it's not good. So let's never meet or have anyone else ever meet these guys. Well, that was a story right there. It was actually kind of long now that I have read it, but dude, if that ever happened to me, I just straight up like shoot their tire or something. Like you can get away from my car. Alright, let's try to find another. Okay. Yeah, we could read this one. Alright, let's see. Is my stream lagging? No. Okay. So I started reading. Oh, wait, no. This is titled A Home Intruder Came Into My Room One Night. It's from 1 year ago. Ah. Just sprayed myself in the eye. Ah. That hurt. Okay. So I started reading the post here, and I realized that my story would fit in well. So here goes. I'm a 27-year-old woman, and this happened to me 9 or 10 years ago when I was a senior in high school. We lived in a pretty large house, but my siblings were all away at college or boarding school, so it was only my parents and I in the house. I am a crazy light sleeper, so when I woke up in the dark and saw my alarm clock flashing 3:11 a.m., I wasn't too surprised. However, I was wide awake, not just groggily stirring in my sleep. I lay there wondering what had woken me when I heard very soft footsteps on the stairs outside my bedroom. The door to my room was parallel to the left side of the bed, and I happened to be laying with my back to the door. When the footsteps approached my door, I thought it must be one of my parents checking on me for some reason. Then the doorknob was turned so slowly. Still, I thought they were just trying not to wake me. The door began to open, again, slowly and carefully. It made a creaking noise, no matter how slowly it was opened, so the person finally just shoved it the rest of the way, to silence the creak. Still, my naive brain thought it was one of my parents, until they clicked on a flashlight. I froze. Terror flooded me, and I remembered that I instantly broke out in a sweat. They were behind me, and I was facing away, so they couldn't see my eyes wide open as they shone the beam straight on me. I always used to think that if something like this ever happened, I would be such a badass, and I would whip out of bed and punch them, attack them, shout, scream, do something. But I could do nothing at all. All I could do was try to keep my breathing deep, and even despite the pounding of my heart, so that the intruder wouldn't know I was awake. Oh, that's some interesting grammar. After about 10 seconds, they finally moved the light away. I prayed and begged and bartered with anything that would listen to me as the intruder walked around my room, looking at my things. I could vaguely see their shape, large and bulky, like they were wearing two coats. They had a baseball cap on. They didn't shine the flashlight on me again, and after a few minutes, which felt like an eternity, they left my room. I could still hear them walking around the rest of the second floor, though my siblings' empty bedrooms. I was still sweating, still frozen in terror, not knowing what to do. I wanted to grab my phone and call my dad sleeping downstairs. I wanted to call our landline so that the phone would ring and wake my parents up. I wanted to call the police. I wanted to get up and run from my room. And I wanted to cry. But I couldn't do any of those things. I was afraid that they would hear me. And I didn't know if they had a weapon and would try to hurt me or my parents. I wouldn't wish such helpless terror on my worst enemy. I don't know how, but I must have passed out from fear, or the adrenaline wore off and I fell asleep somehow, because the next thing I knew it was 6 a.m. and I could hear my parents downstairs. I ran downstairs and as calmly as I could asked them if one of them had been in my room last night. Their faces went blank and they said no, they hadn't. That was the last straw. I broke down in sobs and told them then someone was in my room last night. And even as I typed this, my hands have begun shaking, and I've teared up. The police were called even though there was little they could do at that point. Apparently when my parents woke up, all of the doors to the outside were standing wide open, and there was a duffel bag at the bottom of the stairs. All that was inside was a coil of nylon rope and an empty USB flash drive. I don't want to think about what it was for. The intruder hadn't taken anything, and we have no idea why they left. Why they left in what appeared to be a hurry. It took me about a week to be able to sleep in my own room, a sanctuary which felt violated and frightening to me now. I carry pepper spray, sleep with a machete next to my bed, and double check locks every night. Hopefully this will never happen again, but if it does, hopefully I won't freeze. It's been 10 years and my most common nightmare is that someone is in my room, standing in the shadows watching me. And that's the end of the story. Well, that was pretty creepy. Hopefully that never happens to any of us. I don't know what I'd do if there was an intruder in my bedroom. Thankfully I have weapons in my room, so there's that, but not all of them are in arm's reach, and you never know what kind of weapons they might have. Alright. Why I really love my dog? Oh, that's... that is so long. Never mind. Alright, let's read this one. My neighbors got killed and we all heard. I live in a low class neighborhood in the Caribbean. It's a quiet place where nothing happens. The type of place people go and retire. The kind of place people go and retire to and sip pina coladas all day. However, a few houses next to mine lived a family that was not like the rest. They had the biggest house on the street and lived luxuriously. Their kids would play with me, especially the smallest girl we all nicknamed Tiny. Tiny was about 5 when I was 11. She was always at my house and knew my mom and the neighbors were concerned. I knew my mom and the neighbors were concerned about a 5-year-old being all day outside and not arriving at her house until midnight on school days. Yeah, I'd be a little weirded out if a 5-year-old was hanging out with an 11-year-old all the time. I mean, I guess it's not like a huge age difference, but I don't know. 6 years and to be hanging out that much? 5-year-olds don't tend to want to hang out with older kids like that. Alright. It was a quiet place where nothing happened, so no one got worried. When Tiny turned 6, her parents threw a giant birthday party for her and all of the neighborhood kids were invited. I wanted to go. They had bouncy houses, water slides, and everything a kid would want to play with, but my parents didn't allow me to go. I never knew why. I suppose it was because my mom didn't know her mom. I remember feeling very sad because everyone was there and I was playing alone at my house. Well, that's lame. Your parents are not cool. After the birthday, things went back to normal. And one day we were all playing and talking about what our parents did for work. When asked Tiny and her siblings, but none of them knew what they did, except he traveled a lot and was always at meetings. I didn't pay much attention. We all continued on with our day. One night, we were playing on the street when we started hearing loud pops coming from Tiny's house. I'll never forget that day. The neighbors, including my mom, came rushing us inside, yelling it was gunshots. Some of us got in my house and we stayed there as my next door neighbor, a cop, ran towards Tiny's house. All we saw after the gunshots were a black van rushing down the street and almost killing a dog. Oh no. Some men entered the house. Tiny and her siblings wanted to check what was going on, but everyone forbade them to go. And all I remember was a bunch of cops and ambulances a few minutes later. And in a day, I never saw Tiny and her siblings again. For a couple of months, the house sat empty, but black vans and strange men kept coming into the neighborhood, door to door, asking for any information about the man and his children. No one in the neighborhood spoke about it, and I know the cops asked me about Tiny and the kids as if they ever said anything weird about his dad and mom. But I was only 11 and more concerned about playing Mario Kart on the Wii than what happened that night. Years passed and the story faded away. Now that I'm grown up, I asked my neighborhood, the cop, great grammar, again, what went down that night, as there were rumors the guy died. He said that night the man got a gun emptied in his skull and his wife was gravely wounded. She survived because he was a drug lord. Oh, I think they mean separately. This happened because he was a drug lord that was going to make a deal with the police to turn in his rival gangs and some other people to the cops. The men in the van that were going door to door wanted to know where his kids and wife were to also shut them up. As to the kids, his oldest son was found dead a few hours away in the neighboring town, his car set on fire. His other children are now living in other countries under witness protection programs. I just hope wherever Tiny is, she's doing okay, and her family got the help they needed. Okay. That was intense. Well, it's late and I'm tired. Also hungry. I was planning on streaming for an hour or so, but half an hour is good enough for me, especially considering no one came to the stream that... Okay, I don't know. We did have one person come in for a minute, but they left, so I think I'm gonna go enjoy the rest of my Halloween, and I hope that you guys who will possibly be watching this in the future enjoyed yours as well. I'm a little bummed that no one showed up, kind of surprising, but oh well. Yeah, I don't know. I'll catch you guys later. Have a nice Halloween night.